didn't happen, and we recognize that we're 2 minutes late, but in classic Gamba Chernikov form, we were just polishing everything up to get here for this really important conversation. So I will look to Ken for the private chat to confirm that we are live everywhere we are supposed to be. And I will welcome my friend, my colleague, my coach, my co-host, my rival in the NFC East, John Gamba, to the show.
Well, now you can say things confidently because you, my friend, and the Commanders are looking very tough. So I am bringing my ranker down and just saying, may the best team win. Got to change the name, though.
I told you I had some. I told you.
I find that name insulting.
Okay. All right. Well, that's another time that's another show for another time. But we have got some music, and we've got a great topic today. Ken, give me the thumbs up. Live. That's great. We've got a great topic today, and I love the way that this topic kind of came about, and it was because I came clean with you about demos, which is something that has been kind of bothering me. You probably wouldn't like me using that word bother, that I've been thinking about for a while now, because through the Ed Sales Elevation experience, get a chance, obviously, to work with a lot of companies. We've worked with 97 companies. And a lot of times I hear from these CEOs and founders that I got my discovery call, but my demo kills it. Really? Tell me about it. And they put me to sleep, and then they do it for 45 minutes. So I'm not a huge fan of demos. I prefer to use that time to talk. So we started talking about this 2 weeks ago, yes, and thought, hey, we've got a great topic here. And then people have been chiming in about what they do for demos. So before we get started, talk to us about
John Martin. Just really killed.
John's coming in hot.
Yeah. Cowboys Nation. Ooh.
Oh no. Okay.
Well, although their third string could win tonight, that's for sure.
We'll deal with John, who's a friend of Rita, and you know John as well.
Yeah, John's a good man.
So glad to have Mike, glad to have Ernie, glad to have John. We've got the Chargers, the Bears, and the Cowboys, and the Skins, and the Eagles covered here. So, but we need more people and more teams in the education
space. Where are my
space.
Philly peeps, man?
Hopefully they're not getting through the door. But John, tell us about who you are, please, and the great stuff you do. And we are behind the scenes. We have the QR code of what you want to talk about. We can put that up.
Yeah. So I'm John Gamba. I'm the Director of Innovative Programs and Entrepreneur in Residence here at Penn's Graduate School of Education. I'm on campus today in West Philly. I oversee our entrepreneurial programming, where we're advancing innovation, impact, and equity in worldwide education. We do that through a continuum of programming, meetups, boot camps, our innovation summit, our entrepreneur in residence hours, which is one-to-one mentoring, our Catapult virtual accelerator, which we'll talk about, and our signature program, the Penn GSE Milk and Education Business Plan Competition, which is now in its 16th year, where we've supported over 2,000 education entrepreneurs from 50 countries and all 7 continents. So love my job, love what I do, graduate of UPenn, and just absolutely love working with purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are changing the face of education as we know it.
We are surrounded by those folks, and you can't have too many of them. So if there are more that want to join John's orbit, you should see a QR code there on the screen, and you can snap that and join John. And then we'll talk more about the Ed Sales Elevation experience and all things like that. There's Rob. Hey, Rob, joining in from Chicago as well, and Class Catalyst. So, John, we had this conversation a couple weeks ago with Brent. Brent is not able to make this conversation. He might have some big news coming about MyAl, but I can't talk about that just yet. And in my notes, what I wrote down is that you said when it comes to a demo, you should host and have a guided, facilitated conversation. Don't just jump into a demo. First, understand the prospect's current challenges and how your solution can address them. Can you A, confirm that you said it, and B, talk more about it?
Sure. So I can confirm it. It's exactly how I feel. Just a little context. I've overseen or managed or led direct and indirect sales forces for over 25 years in the ed tech space. So a lot of lessons learned. Humbly state that I've done a lot of this and done a lot of thinking about the art of the demo, and even given some master classes on it. But to just expound a little, I like to say that some of my mentees are in the thick of selling. My favorite movie is Glengarry Glen Ross. So ABC, right? Always be closing. Well, I have a little bit of a different spin on ABC as it relates to demos and what I call consultatively selling an ed tech product, with the demo being sort of the center of it. The A is alignment selling. I like to call it alignment selling. So when there was $190 billion of ESSER money out there, there was a line of what school districts could spend that on, $190 billion. And I coach my entrepreneurs to align their product to those line items. Could be mental health, could be safety and security in the case of John and his safety and security product. It could be mental health. It could be closing the achievement gap. So whatever is named in the appropriation or named in Title I through IV funding, you need to align your product as you're demoing to those appropriated funds and be very clear and specific in how school districts can typically fund a product or service. B is benefits selling. In your demo, I like to say features tell, benefits sell. So you need to be able to, as you're demoing, not just demo features of your product, but demo the benefits of what and how using the product will lead to benefits within the school district, within the school, within the decision makers who you're prospecting and who you're selling to. C, and we can get into each one of these even deeper. C is contextual selling. Again, really thinking about the published strategic plan of that school or school district. 99% of school districts will publish publicly on websites their strategic plan. And as you're getting into the demonstration, share the context of your why, John Martin, of your the underlying research that went into designing and developing the product or service, and the contexts with regard to the evaluative model that is put into place so that you can show how the impact of whatever's being delivered can be showcased, presented, and published to substantiate the value of the service. So aligning to funding buckets, benefits over features, and the contexts by which you're bringing the product or service forward take you away from the classic, here are the features, do you like it? Here are the features, do you want to buy it? You go through that ABC, I like your chances of being able to maximize the value of a consultative sale and a demo that has bite.
Thank you for that mini masterclass. Total touchdown. Appreciate it.
AJ Brown, baby.
Only for you, brother. Only for you.
I know that was hard for you. That was very difficult for you to even get that up.
Let me breathe. Okay. So alignment, benefits, and contextual selling. We could obviously go into all three of those. However, I'd like to start at the end because I wanted to give you some feedback that when we were speaking last week about the part of contextual selling and looking at published plans of school districts, I had people come back to me who said, I never thought about that, and I'm starting to do it. So can you go deeper, particularly on where people can learn more about each school district and their published plan, how you would read a published plan, attack it, take the notes, crunch it, and then use it to your advantage to help them.
Yes, I can, and to bring it away from sports, I'll use a example with somebody who's on here, Nona Ullman and Lesson Loop. So before going into a sale to a district decision maker, and typically a Lesson Loop presentation would be made to a cabinet level person, a superintendent or a chief academic officer, who is bound by the strategic plan and tactics related to student engagement. And typically a school district will name student engagement as being a guiding value or something that needs to be improved across the district. And we need to be able to determine if we're engaging students, B, determine which students are not engaged, and C, be able to deliver measurable ways to improve student engagement, because we know a more engaged student leads to a higher performing student. So Nona, as the founder of Lesson Loop, would go to the district's website and find the strategic and pan through that and see where student engagement and data analytics in terms of measuring the impact of the education that we're providing our students is published. And then in the demo, as she's showing her student engagement software or solution, she would stop and she would say, section 6.b subbullet I, and quote the specific area of the strategic plan that she's addressing. That's a beautiful context and has the eyebrows raised. And she would do it like only Nona can, in a humble way, not done my homework and showing you they know what the strategic plan is, but a little bit of showcasing how that solution will align to that district's published strategic plan in a specific way adds bite to the overall presentation and demonstration.
Can I just point out that you know every single person?
No, I don't. I just
think
know
you do.
all the important people, Nona, Rob, Ernie especially.
Fair enough. Listen, when obviously Nona would never raise her fist and say, I've got this and I'm teaching you. So something you have emphasized to me and you emphasized when we talked about this was talk with, not at the prospect. What's the difference?
Again, I think I shared the last time, one of the biggest lessons learned is I've been accused of being able to sell ice to Eskimos, and it's just really an art and a passion of being able to consultatively sell. And I have to say, I was very well trained. I was trained in part by some really incredible mentors, including Robin Richards, who was the co-founder of MP3, who I remember one day saying, hey man, I don't want to be perceived as a sales pit person. And he said, I hope salesperson is on my epitaph and on my tombstone, because I'm very proud of being a salesperson. And he gave me this training and mentoring in this area. And I think that it's really important to go into a demo with an inquiry mindset. I can't tell you how many times I've seen really good salespeople say, I may have this wrong, but if I read your strategic plan correctly, and I saw a couple of articles relating to community engagement or your priority with regard to hardening the school, or your priority with leveraging AI to increase student proficiencies in the area of math or reading. That's very different than saying presentation value or bullet number 1, bullet number 2, bullet number 3. You will ask, tell me a little bit more about how you're using AI and the promise of AI to increase student proficiencies in these areas. And I always like to say, be interested, not interesting, and be able to pause throughout the demo and say, now, how can you picture how this could work within your 6th grade science classes? Do you find it important to ensure that it aligns to NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards? Pause, side note, be careful of buzzword bingos. A lot of school districts, you would think, know acronyms like ESSER or acronyms like NGSS or NCLB or ESSA. Don't make that assumption and don't look like a superstar by throwing down, buzzwords and playing bingo with them. That always comes back to backfire. So be really frank, be earnest, and be interested in figuring out how you're going to align, share the benefits, and build the context behind your product or service.
All that's helpful, super helpful. Let's take it. Let's talk about some of the maybe the recent Milken semifinalists or finalists. I know you get a chance to watch them in action. Clearly, they are rock stars. We got a chance to see some of them yesterday in your breakthroughs, which everybody should attend every month with John. So can you pull from one of them how you got a chance to watch their demo? Because I believe as part of what they have to do, they have to submit a video, potentially a demo. Can you pull from one of them of what you saw and how that worked in terms of their demo?
Yeah, I won't use those three specifically because Build Nigeria is less of an ed tech product, and Saturday Art Class is still putting together some of their presentations. And Batasia, which I think is really fascinating, a language translation software. I haven't seen their demo, but I've worked with all of them in the areas of leadership, product market, and finance, but just not literally looking at their demos to the end user. Now, I've helped them with their investor presentations for sure through Pitch Perfect presentations. But in terms of the demo specifically out to superintendents and buyers, I've seen Nona's. I've seen several. I'll give you an example, though, which I think you're getting at. Someone like let's just say another semifinalist in our Milken competition from a year past who's been very successful. Prisms of Reality, Anurupa Ganguly. I've shared this story for a while. Kind of a confusing, cryptic value proposition, right? Solving the algebra problem through VR. Oh my gosh, VR. I can't bring VR into my classroom. What if the kids get sick? And she had a really interesting way of saying, conventionally, here is how math and algebra is taught. And wow, you start seeing in very simple slides, very simple terms. What if I told you you could teach the good of math in virtual reality, but amp up engagement, experiential, immersive, and real world problem solving, which is in your strategic plan, and align all that to the instructional episodes that you're putting forth as you're teaching algebra, making it more engaging, making it more real world problem solving, and making it more geared toward college and career readiness. And she doesn't go 100% and 10 for 10 on all of her demos, but boy, I have to tell you, when she kind of asked the question, do I have that right in terms of conventionally how math is taught, and how if we could amp it up through this modality, would that make a difference? She's got them. Not necessarily a sale, closed deal, but yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, it helps that Anurupa, the founder at the founder-led sales pitch and demo, is a math pedagogue herself. She's delivered thousands of hours of math professional development, and she was a math instructor and a math coach at a very successful nonprofit charter school system. But you get the point. She set the context of how math is traditionally taught, how it could be taught, and then in she goes with her demo to show exactly what the Prisms of Reality solution does. And boy, is it powerful.
John was doing a little name dropping there, which is wonderful. And you've got Brent and Ernie and Nona and Rob and John and Mike and lots of other people out there who are watching. We do have a community, the Ed Sales Elevation Experience community. I did put a QR code up here that you guys can join that community on LinkedIn, where we're discussing this stuff night and day all over the world. But it is all educators who are tackling and asking these really tough questions, really about how to position yourselves, generate more leads, and of course, bring your passion to schools. So we got got a lot of sports talk. We've got Rob talking Philly, and we've got Brent thanking John for being a Cowboys fan. You guys can go cry alone. But we have an actual question from Ernie. Do demo at first meeting or on a follow-up meeting, John?
I think you have to have a really strong feel of who your first meeting is with, and to do your homework prior to that first meeting to determine if a demo would help or hurt. I think you always have to be prepared. I think that you always have to be ready to go with the flow. I would never just automatically make a decision yes on first meeting demo or no. I think it really depends on the audience. It depends on the type of product you have. I'll say this. I've grappled with the term alignment on the ABC versus assumptive. And to Ernie's point, I think another great question is, what do I do on a second call if I've already given a demo and then there's a new audience on the second call? Because I don't see many companies doing one call closes, right? You got to be really good to get on that first call and then come out of that with send me a proposal. It's usually 2, 3, 4. And that's where I get into the term assumptive close. And here's where I go with that, Ernie, on the second call. Sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 people who are there on the first call who want to be there on the second call because they were interested, but they bring in other decision makers. So a superintendent or a PIO or a chief academic officer will bring in 5 progressive principals to take a look at lesson loop. And they'll come on and they'll say, hey, I saw this first demo, but I know I would never make a decision without the buy-in of my big guns, right? Typically, that's what happens in ed tech sales. And what I love about that meeting is to be able to convey what you think resonated on the first call. That's the assumptive close. So on the first call, and what I think Maureen really liked is how this aligned to the strategic objective related to implementing meaningful science of reading applications. And so what I want to show you here is what I think raised some eyebrows on the first call, and then we can talk about that. Now, Maureen, can you share, do you think that David and Bill also felt that this is something that could be to support the district's priorities as it relates to science of reading and elevating some of the test scores in the elementary and middle school grades?
Nice.
That's how I would do it, Ernie.
Let me present an idea that we have floated in the Ed Sales Elevation Experience. I can't remember which cohort it was. Doing what I like to call confirmation call. I don't necessarily call it discovery call. I call it confirmation call because at that point, at least in my business, most people have checked out my LinkedIn or the website. They kind of know who I am, and this is really, we're confirming that maybe we want to work together. In between the first call, the confirmation call, and what I call the self-identification call, sending a Loom video. And that could be your demo time where you can really personalize and also produce a video, and you do not get interrupted, and the technology can't trip you up, or if it does, you can start over if the internet goes out or something happens that you didn't expect, because those moments are awful when you're doing a demo and something happens with the tech. So you could send a 5 to 8 minute video, and if you do it via Loom, you can pretty much see that it's been watched by somebody. If they don't sign in, you see it's anonymous, so you know at least somebody's watching it. And then you sit down for that next meeting where hopefully you've got more stakeholders. Maybe they haven't all watched it. And you can say, hey, I know you might not have seen the demo video, but we can send that to you. So what do you think about sending it as a video in between first and second meeting?
I think it's a really smart tactic. But let me give you a practical example or practical application. So I've seen presentations where it's established that in order for this product or service to be adopted or implemented at school district A, it needs to be engaging, lesson loop, pedagogically aligned, and easy to adopt. And in the presentation, you may talk about interoperability. I want to be careful about that term, but single sign-on integrating with Canvas or Schoology or Google Classroom. and you may gloss over it, and you may see, if you're perceptive, the audience kind of have big eyes, say, man, I wouldn't implement anything unless it has single sign-on. And we use ClassLink, or we use EdLink, or some of the other interoperable standards that are out there. And you take a mental note of that. And I think on the follow-up call, it would be really cool if you said, Joey, or I always use first, titles. Dr. Jimenez said that interoperability was critically important, and actually send a no more than 1 or 2 minute Loom video that shows Google Classroom integration. Let me show you how it works with Lesson Loop. Right here, we are integrated with your Google Classroom. I press this link and you can access Lesson Loop, or you can access this solution through that interface. Boom, you just did it. And you highlighted and you showed that you were listening, that component was really important. And you're actually demoing it on a short video. I think it's really effective, Josh.
Cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Loom. Testing technology. If you guys are watching on your computer or your phone, I was testing a little bit of our technology right now in terms of how John and I are sitting in our little boxes. So all this is really warm and fuzzy. Let me tell you a story. I was doing a demo in my second business, Flex Academies, and just kind of demoing. The idea here was to demo for a PTA, what our course catalog looked like when it came to after school enrichment, move them on to showing them our registration, and then really kind of walk them through how we would curate a program for them. So all really, I think, important and exciting stuff for them. Always had really good demos until one time I didn't realize it, but I had COVID. And I didn't realize that the way COVID would affect me is that it would make me really frustrated. And I'm not a frustrated person, as many of you out there know. And so I was giving this demo, and it just went sideways. And I remember it was a Thursday morning, and I just started getting really frustrated with the line of questioning, and didn't get the client, and eventually gave up, and really never went back. It wasn't COVID's fault, but it caused me to rethink everything. That's why I started kind of, beginning to leverage video a little bit more. So that's one of my worst stories, and I will never forget that call. And I apologized to them, and I said, I did not handle your questions well. So my fault. But you just never know what type of day you're having, or what's going on in your life, or what was going on in that person's life to ask me those tough questions. Now it's your turn to share. What is the worst example that you've experienced in terms of a demo going wrong?
Yeah. I've shared, the worst will ever would be Marshfield, I think Connecticut or Massachusetts, I should know that. Over 20 years ago, where I gave the best demo of my life, and the person leaned in and said, you never asked who we were. I didn't go around the room and understand who was. I just went straight into this awesome demo. And boy, did that just take the air out of the room. And I was so embarrassed to be called out publicly, because of course the demo was so awesome.
Yeah.
It was just an okay demo, but it was really a reminder to be interested, not interesting, to not be so scripted, to try to be more human. And that was a disaster. But Josh, I could share a bunch of those, because I've had some flops, and it is humiliating, and it is tough, but it's also an opportunity to learn. Mm-hmm. One lesson that I've learned from bad demos that is a lesson for this group is, don't battle the bad apples. That's a rule. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have in a demo somebody that says, what about security? Or we could never implement that in this district because of da, 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 da. Or we already have so many of these solutions. And you can immediately, and I really coach entrepreneurs to look that person dead in the eye and say, I hadn't thought of it that way. Or that's really good feedback. I have to think about that. versus, no, that's actually not true. We vetted this with 4,000 school districts and they all are fine with our privacy policy. No, it's never that. It's an acknowledgement of a comment. When they go low, you go high, and you make them feel like the most important in the room. Tell me more about what you're thinking there. Tell me a little bit more about that feedback. I'd like to take that to my team. So that's one rule. Another rule that is always endemic or a symptom of a bad demo, and this is what I want your team, our team on this call, to promise us you never do. You ready?
Hold on. Don't go yet.
This one drives me crazy when my founder-led sales group does this. Ready?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm not technical, so I have to go and ask my technical team that one, because you're going to get stumped by the CTO or the technical person that's in the room. You never say, I'm not technical. Now, if there's a question that you can't answer, you should be earnest. But you're not there to not be technical. You're there because you are representing an ed tech product, and you need to be able to represent the technical capabilities of that. So I can see demos going flat and bad when a technical person kind of takes the air out of the room, starts challenging a founder, and that founder has to back off. So I'd be very, very careful of that. And my advice there is be technical. Don't get in front of sales and demos of a tech product without being able to respond to a lot of the technical questions that will come out. And actually, you can turn that into a strength, not a weakness. The more as a founder who, not being technical, I like to say founders, technical people who think strategically are really great, just like technical people who think strategically are great. So strategic people who think technically great, technical people who think strategically great, and that's the mark of really good founders.
Having come from the John Gamba School of Coaching, we never let a crisis go to waste. To recap a couple things you said that I have wrote down and love, much more than thank you for the feedback, because I think at this point that is basically, kind of a throwaway line. I hadn't thought of it that way. Ooh, I like that. I think I'm going to use that in this house, actually. when I get told that I've done, I hadn't thought about it that way. The other thing is I'm going to take that back to my team. I like that because that shows A, you've got a team, and B, you're considering what they're saying. Anybody is more than welcome to put questions wherever you are. If you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, they're rolling right into our chat. Ernie, can you, if people sign into Loom, you can confirm who watched it. If they do not sign in, it says anonymous, but at least you have had somebody watch it. So that's always good, because either somebody's watched it or multiple people have watched it, because you can see the views go up. Or on the flip side, if nobody watches it, coming into that next meeting, nobody has taken the time to watch it. And then, John, I'm going to hand the question there from Brent to you. Brent said, I like the quote, they go low, you go high. But John, you just hit all the standard responses from public school tech folks. If they stonewall you and continue to stonewall you, they love to do that. How does your quote, I need to think about that more, work?
I think I need to think about that more should be the very end before you flip it and go nuts. But before you go to, I need to think a little bit about that, because that's ultimately a nice punt. You should be proactive to try to disarm some of the technical people. Now, I know we have some technical leaders. You never call them representatives, because technical people in a meeting like that want to be recognized as leaders. Technical leaders in the room. I want you to know that we can go into the details of our private. Take it out right from the beginning. Our privacy, our security, our user guide. We can talk about provisioning and onboarding, and I'm ready to do that if you want. But for now, I'm going to stay focused on the benefits of this solution, and then maybe we could take the technical questions offline. That's one way to do it. I do think that happens, and I'm just talking about when demos go flat. You talked about rules and family. I would say implementing the rule not only of I hadn't thought about it that, but the rule of CCK, right? And I'm working on this one, and that is calm, cool, and kind, right? So
Mhm.
anything that gets thrown at you, don't get flustered. Just take it as this is a humbling job to be an entrepreneur. You got to go through a lot of no's before you get to a lot of powerful yeses, um, and really treat it as an opportunity for growth if a demo starts to go bad. And we know the reasons why they usually do.
Okay. Stay calm, cool, collected. John Gamba, great hair, cool guy. But what if things go wrong? How do you coach people to maybe in that moment, if shit's hitting the fan, maybe the tech's not working, maybe you're getting a really crappy line of questioning. We've got some lines to use. And if things go sideways and you finish, do you that night, that next day, send an email or make a phone call and acknowledge that the demo was not the way you want it, and I'd like to do it again, or do you not acknowledge it and just try and breeze past it? How do you handle it when and if, because it will happen, the shit hits the fan?
I would just say, the district over there was smart enough to adopt this product, and if you're not smart enough to adopt it, I'm out of here, and I'd pack up my shit and leave.
Right.
No, I think that's a good way. When you start seeing something goes south, I think less is more. Trying to not talk your way out of it, but try to get to the point where, when the air is out, and it would be a follow up. Yeah, a technical glitch, a question that is a really good question that you can't answer. Learn from it so that it doesn't happen the next time. I always like to say, Josh, we faced that challenge. If it's with another implementation, and this is how we handled it. It's always that's a great question, and we faced that at Santa Ana. And if you can come up with some sort of a precedent of a school district or a school that was nearby, and use that as an example where you overcame the question that was being asked in a coherent, specific way, trying to stay away from the glittering generalities. I mean, I think coming out of this session, some use cases would be great. If this happens, how would you handle it that way? We can do that. I love that. I think that's a great way of approaching these kinds of situations.
I think that there's also the most important thing is we're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. As many times you can do that demo, and I like to use golf metaphors with a lot of folks, and do that demo. Do that demo in front of people, which to me is like the driving range. It's hitting off mats. But do that demo in front of people you don't know as many times as you can. That's like getting on the course where there's hazards that come at you and random and crazy things that'll happen. But just practice, practice, practice. Philip chiming in from New Jersey, who just went out to Hawaii and was at Hawaii's Ed Tech Week, which, John, I think we got to put that on our calendar for next year. Let's figure out a way to get out there. Philip chiming in saying he always kind of, yeah, right. I'll take it back to my team. So as we kind of begin to wind down here, John, I want to take the time. I want to put back up here this QR code for Catalyst and talk more about what you're hoping people to do with that QR code, please.
Well, if it's a QR code for Catapult's virtual accelerator, we have a general membership which has over 8,000 master classes and podcasts and lighthouse reports. And a lot of the things that we talk about in our mentoring and our EIR sessions is available for free in the general membership area of Catapult. And yes to Hawaii too. Recently, we had feedback from some of the beta testers of our advanced membership that we could charge for it. And we have a one-time fee for now for the first 100 entrepreneurs who want to get access to advanced membership, which gives you an assessment, takes you a half hour, to see where you have strengths, areas of development, and areas of need where once that assessment is taken and you get a founder focus map, we take you on a continuum, self-paced, standalone, do it at your own time because we know you're busy, focused on leadership, product, market, and fundraising. So a lot of the things we talked about today, this focus was on demoing and selling, would be incorporated in the market positioning lane of that advanced member area of Catapult. So if you can afford it and you want to get connected to strategic advisors, learning resources, classroom practitioners, and academic researchers, all within this community of practice, click that QR code, come to Catapult/advanced membership, sign up, and off we'll go with some more learning in these areas, in these critical areas.
Watching your breakthroughs yesterday, and you were kind of walking people through the assessment, and man, you guys have made a lot of strides, and that is a really wonderful thing you're doing. So I wanted to follow up here. I'm a firm believer, as you know, is kind of putting things out there and then making them happen. So I guess Hawaii is now going to have to happen. Awesome. If you're interested in the Josh and John show, I put something out there to John recently, which a story was called The Red Bandana. And this was a really interesting story about a young man who grew up outside of New York. His father gave him a red bandana. It was kind of his signature thing. He went to Boston College to play lacrosse and hockey. He then kind of got a desk job kicking ass, and he was in the South Tower on 9/11. And as far as I understand the story, and you should look, it was done by Tom Rinaldi. He also wanted to be a fireman and had done some volunteer firefighting. And when the South Tower was hit, he started saving lives. And his parents never really knew much about what happened to him other than that he died. But then they read a story in the New York Times about somebody who mentioned the red bandana, and somebody in a red bandana saved my life. And they started to piece together the story of their son. And I sent that to John, and then in classic John fashion, I guess he watched it, and then he said, "I've signed up for the race." And I said, "Well, then I got to sign up for the race." So we are going to run this race, which I can put in the chat here because it is up, and it is on October the 19th. So if anybody wants to join us for the Red Bandana race, that would be awesome. There is the link to it. So we're putting it out there and we're doing it. And then the other thing, John, this is not a competition, but I realize the technology now with these QR codes, I'm able to see that we have had 5 people snap QR codes. 3 for you, 2 for me. It is not a competition. And this is something that I've thought about. How did Josh and John kind of position this? Because we're still talking to the same people, and we're here to help however we can.
Yeah,
however we can. So
I'll actually say that advanced membership was born out of a lot of the conversations I've had with you, Josh, in terms of, how do we go from a free 7,000, 8,000 learning resources to a little bit more of a community of practice. And I've learned a lot from watching you in action. And our dean and our new dean and our CFO has kind of challenged me to be even more entrepreneurial than I've been, and to challenge ourselves not to be so free service oriented, be a little bit more intentional with how we're monetizing, commercializing, and building and growing some of our programming. So there you have it.
It is the advanced membership QR code. Ernie, yeah, man, Hawaii on. Mike, I love that quote, and that's what we'll close with. You can't practice soft and expect to play hard. And what we're doing here on a very different level than the Red Bandana in this conversation was to encourage people to practice those demos, but do them in a really great way. So we got one last question here. His audio cut out for a bit. It could be his hearing because he's getting old. Brent's getting old. I heard 100 companies. Is that the cap on the number of startups you allow into Catalyst?
Brent is young at heart. So we have 1,500 members in general membership. We have 55 advanced members who have paid, and we are capping that at 100. So we have 45 open spaces before we start making that fee an annual fee. So if you're one of the next 45 who signs up, you will have perpetual access. It'll never close down on you, lifetime access. And all we're doing with you is measuring the impact. So we'll be polling you. How's it working? What do you think about it? How does it? And then at 101, the 101st advanced member registrant will be paying an annual fee of $399 a year.
That's an amazing offer.
Thank you.
And
from a ed sales elevation partner like you, that's awesome.
It's an amazing
signature
offer.
Solution.
Yeah, way to go. So we've done it again here. We're 47 minutes in. We went 2 minutes over, 3 minutes over, but we were
really gushing about you, Nona. Come on.
Yeah, it was Nona's fault. Her audio cut out too, or our audio cut out too?
I don't know.
Huh. Interesting. Nona, we will have the recording. Absolutely.
Respect, Nona.
Yes. Thank you. We can get that cut. Yeah. Less than Luke rocks. Nona rocks. So listen, everybody, thank you for joining. This is always fun, always interesting.
By the way, Nona too, star triathlete. People don't know that.
Are you, when you say two, TOO?
I didn't say two. I said she's a star triathlete, but I don't mean I am, but she is a star triathlete. I am a triathlete. Older I get, the better I was, but Nona's a rock star triathlete.
We got an awesome group here. So we will have the recording. And by the way,
let's all do a triathlon together for charity.
Let's start with a 5K. Okay. But by the way, this will be rebroadcast, restreamed at 11 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. So for all you football fans out there, you can watch this, and then on the East Coast, pick up your remote and start watching your team, or go about the rest of your wonderful fall day. Thank you, everybody, for joining wherever you have. We'll do this again. If you've got questions, you can certainly keep them coming. John is easy to reach on LinkedIn and other places. So am I. And just keep practicing. I want to say that line again from Mike. Can't practice.
No, you mean
expect to play.
You mean from Allen Iverson?
Did Allen Iverson say that?
Practice.
No. Practice. We're talking about practice. This is practice, guys.
Yeah, but he was mocking practice. You're talking about the importance of practice, and I totally agree.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Peace, my brother.
Great afternoon.